Laurent Mekies just replaced Christian Horner as Red Bull's new team principal, the race, and his first major statement just ended the Russell discussion forever. The new Red Bull boss has made it crystal clear. They're looking to promote young drivers from within their own academy system. Mekies has already shown massive support for drivers like Yuki Tsunoda, saying he's made an incredible step across the last 12 months, and praising his development within the Red Bull family. According to ESPN, Russell himself said he's confident about staying with Mercedes for 2026. But here's the question nobody's asking. If Russell is so confident, why are his contract talks completely frozen? And why was Toto Wolff's private jet spotted in Sardinia at the exact same time as Max Verstappen's? The real story isn't about Russell leaving Mercedes. It's about Mercedes potentially forcing him out. And the dots I am connecting changes everything you think you know about this situation. Let's destroy this Red Bull narrative once and for all. Yes, Christian Horner was sacked, but here's what we were waiting for, and it's finally here. The new Red Bull boss, Laurent Mekies, has completely different priorities. According to the race, Mekies may prefer emerging drivers who can integrate during a formative period, rather than bringing in experienced drivers. Translation: Red Bull under Mekies wants young talent, not established stars. BBC Sport confirms this shift, reporting that Red Bull would lean further into promoting from within, drivers like Arvid Limlad, Isaac Hadjar. So if Red Bull doesn't even want Russell, what is the future of this narrative? Are we missing the real story happening at Mercedes? Let's start with what Russell has actually delivered for Mercedes this season. According to F1, Russell has been the standout within Mercedes in 2025, scoring the majority of their points. He's not just participating, he's leading. That Canadian Grand Prix victory? Far from a lucky break. Since Formula One entered the ground effect era, Mercedes has secured 5 pole positions, and Russell claimed 4 of them. When it comes to race wins in this current regulatory period, Russell has delivered the goods time and again. But here's where things get really fascinating. According to Formula One's official website, Russell himself admitted it does help if there was a pen on paper when discussing his contract situation. Think about that for a moment. A driver who's carried the team, who's proven himself against Lewis Hamilton, who's delivering results right now, doesn't have security for next season. ESPN reports that Russell is confident about staying with Mercedes for 2026, but he also acknowledged something crucial. It isn't entirely in his hands. And that's because, as Sky Sports reported, Mercedes managing Russell's career creates a paradox where they'd have to sit down with George and tell him that he is no longer the best choice for their team. The escalation becomes clear when you look at the championship standings. Russell is currently just 18 points behind Verstappen. According to the sources, if he manages to overtake him before the summer break and put the Dutchman out of the top 3, then he would help him activate the exit clause. The cruel irony, Russell performing at his peak could trigger the very scenario that costs him his seat. At first glance, you might think this is just typical F1 contract negotiations. Teams always explore their options, right? Russell himself seemed relaxed about it, telling the media that he doesn't take that personally and that he's happy to be teammates with anybody. Here's what actually happened in Sardinia. Planet F1 tracked both Verstappen and Wolff's private jets to the same Italian island. Motorsport Week confirmed these weren't coincidental meetings. They were deliberate negotiations, but the timing is what makes this explosive. But the evidence suggests something far more calculated is happening. According to Motorsport Week, Russell's contract talks with Mercedes are on hold, while the team focuses on monitoring Max Verstappen's situation. Think about that. While Russell is delivering race wins and championship points, his own team is actively courting his replacement. This isn't standard negotiation tactics. This is Mercedes actively waiting for another driver before committing to their current race winner. This isn't a driver playing hard to get. This is a driver who knows his team is shopping elsewhere. And then came the bombshell that changed everything. Without Horner's steadying influence and the relationship he'd built with Verstappen over the years, Toto now has a clear path to convince the three-time world champion that his future lies in silver. For George Russell, this initially spells disappointment. The prospect of being replaced by arguably the sport's most dominant driver would be a bitter pill to swallow for any competitor. However, if the Verstappen to Mercedes negotiations ultimately fail, Russell will find himself in an unexpectedly powerful position. Should the Max move collapse, Russell emerges as the undisputed lead driver at Mercedes, a status that wasn't diminished by Verstappen's potential arrival, and certainly can't be threatened by any other driver currently on the grid. His proven ability to deliver pole positions and victories in the ground effect era means he'd hold all the cards in future contract negotiations, having weathered the storm of Mercedes' most ambitious driver pursuit in years. Here's the cruelest twist in this story. Russell is currently just 18 points behind Verstappen in the championship. The sources reveal that if Russell manages to overtake him before the summer break and put the Dutchman out of the top three, then he would help him activate the exit clause. Read that again. Russell performing at his absolute peak could trigger the mechanism that brings his replacement to Mercedes. According to our research, Russell might think twice before performing at the best possible level because success could cost him his seat. Interestingly, Max Verstappen finds himself trapped in the exact same paradox, but from the opposite perspective. For Russell, every pole position and podium finish becomes a double-edged sword. His outstanding performances in the ground effect era have ironically made him the perfect placeholder for Mercedes' dream signing. The better he performs, the more attractive Mercedes becomes to Verstappen, and the easier it becomes for Toto to justify moving Russell aside for the three-time world champion. Russell has been the standout within Mercedes in 2025, scoring the majority of their points. He won in Canada. He's proven himself against Lewis Hamilton. Yet none of this matters if Verstappen becomes available. The sources reveal something disturbing about how Mercedes operates. Verstappen faces the mirror image of this dilemma, but with a crucial financial twist that makes his situation even more complex. His continued dominance at Red Bull, particularly in a car that's becoming increasingly uncompetitive, only reinforces Mercedes' desperation to secure his services. Every brilliant drive he delivers in inferior machinery sends a clear message to rival teams about what he could achieve in a championship-contending car. However, Verstappen is trapped in a performance paradox that directly impacts his wallet. If he performs at his peak level, he'll likely finish in the top 3 or 4 in the Drivers' Championship, and Red Bull will secure a similar position in the constructors' standings. This success triggers penalty clauses in his contract that would make his exit a staggering $100 million more expensive, effectively pricing him out of a Mercedes move. Conversely, if Verstappen deliberately underperforms to avoid these financial penalties, he risks damaging his market value for future contracts. Teams won't pay premium wages for a driver who appears to be declining, even if that decline is strategically manufactured. It's a lose-lose scenario where excellence costs him his freedom, but mediocrity costs him his earning potential. This creates an unprecedented situation where both drivers are essentially handcuffed by their own talent. Russell knows that another Canadian Grand Prix-style victory could fast-track his replacement, while Verstappen realizes that every points finish brings him closer to a financial prison at Red Bull. The psychological pressure is immense. Perform too well and face unwanted consequences. Perform poorly and compromise future opportunities. The coming races will reveal whether these drivers can navigate this treacherous middle ground, delivering just enough to maintain their reputations without triggering the contractual mechanisms that could derail their career plans. It's high-stakes poker played out at 200 miles per hour, where every lap time and championship point carries million-dollar implications. The real question: why would Russell be confident if the evidence suggests Mercedes is pursuing Verstappen? Because Russell knows something we don't? Or because he's reading the situation differently than the media? This isn't just about driver contracts. It's about defining Mercedes' championship ambitions for the next decade. The clock is ticking, and Toto's decision will either cement Mercedes as title contenders or leave them scrambling to rebuild their entire competitive strategy. Everything should be known in the next couple of weeks around the summer break when Toto Wolff needs to pull the trigger. This isn't just contract talk, it's Mercedes' entire future hanging in the balance. The equation is brutally simple. Verstappen stays, Russell gets his extension. Verstappen leaves Red Bull. Russell faces career limbo. Accept second fiddle or pack his bags. But here's the twist everyone's missing. What if Russell doesn't wait for their decision? What if he makes the choice for them first? The summer break isn't just Toto's deadline. It's Russell's window to flip the script entirely. The sources suggest Russell might be smart to take things into his own hands and just decide whether or not it's good to create his own future and not wait for others to shape it up. While everyone focuses on Red Bull, the real alternative is Aston Martin. According to Motorsport, Aston Martin views Russell as the cornerstone of their 2026 project. They have Adrian Newey designing the car, Honda engines, and according to the sources, if the project led by Newey turns out to be a success, he would benefit a lot from it. The challenge? Both Alonso and Stroll have contracts for 2026. But if situation comes to that, Alonso understands the nature of things and he knows better than anyone else that if a driver like Russell suddenly becomes available, he would have to move and make a place for him. So what's actually happening? The new shifts suggests Russell isn't leaving Mercedes by choice. He's being pushed out by Wolff's Verstappen obsession. But Russell's confidence suggests he either knows something we don't, or he's prepared to call Mercedes' bluff. The sources paint a picture of a driver who's done everything right, yet finds himself at the mercy of forces completely beyond his control. But Russell's public confidence suggests he's not as powerless as it appears. Russell said he doesn't take that personally and is happy to be teammates with anybody. This isn't resignation, it's strategy. Russell is forcing Mercedes to make the active choice to replace him rather than pushing him out through uncertainty. The summer break will reveal whether Wolff's Verstappen gamble pays off or whether Russell's confidence was justified all along. But one thing is certain, the narrative that Russell is heading to Red Bull is completely wrong. The real story is whether Mercedes is willing to sacrifice their current race winner for a potential future champion. What do you think? Is Russell's confidence justified or is he about to get the shock of his career? Let me know in the comments.